All right, so maybe you've heard of co-hosting, or maybe you've heard of Airbnb investing, Airbnb management, Airbnb arbitrage. There's numerous different things and different ways to make money within Airbnb. Okay, so maybe you've heard of Airbnb. Maybe you've heard of investing in Airbnbs. Maybe you've heard of Airbnb arbitrage. And maybe now you've just come across a new term called co-hosting. So what exactly is co-hosting? So what we're going to do today is we're going to break it all down for you. So we're going to break it down into what is co-hosting, what are the benefits of co-hosting, how to get started as a co-host, the responsibilities of a co-host, how to find somebody to manage for as a co-host, and how to set up a co-hosting agreement, as well as a few different tips to make you successful if you're starting off in co-hosting. So let's go ahead and do a little overview of what co-hosting actually is. So with co-hosting, pretty much what you're doing is Airbnb management. So most likely you have a client that already bought a property, right? They bought a property, but they're a busy individual. Maybe they make a lot of money and they invested in real estate for the passive income. And now they just don't have the time to actually manage it as an Airbnb themselves. Maybe they don't know the systems and the automations to put in place where you can only spend 2 hours a week managing a property. So they're looking for somebody that can help them because they really don't have the time, and they don't have the time to learn how to actually manage the Airbnb themselves. So they're looking for an Airbnb manager or a co-host. So that's exactly what co-hosting is. You would step in and help that individual manage their property for themselves. All right. So as a co-host, pretty much what your job is, if you've ever worked in hospitality before, you're supposed to create a great guest experience for that individual. So what that looks like is you're going to maintain all guest communication for the guests that are booking that Airbnb. You're going to manage all the cleaner communication when a cleaner actually shows up to that actual property after a guest checks out, before a guest checks in, to make sure everything is done appropriately and to the best of your ability to maintain the property at the highest standard, right? So you have to manage the cleaners. You have to make a cleaner checklist to make sure the cleaners are cleaning appropriately, as well as leaving out a few items for the guests to make their experience go even further. All right. So that's one thing that you're going to do. The next thing that you're going to do is you're also going to manage all the revenue management for that actual property. Depending on the time of the year, you're obviously going to have seasonal pricing and off-seasonal pricing. So for example, I'm located here in South Florida. Our high season is going to be December, January, February, and March, right? It's because all the snowbirds from up north come down to South Florida and they want to escape like the snow and then the cold weather or whatever you want to be. So in those months, the pricing should be significantly higher. So as the Airbnb manager, you need to be able to adjust that pricing to where the market can support it. So your owners that you're managing for are making the most amount of money possible. And then if it's off season, like for example, down here, our off season is like August, September, and October, mainly due to the fact that it's extremely hot, it's very humid down here. We have hurricane season, things like that. So you need to bring your pricing down for the lower season. And what I usually recommend is to have a pricing strategy in place for low season. Usually what that looks like for me is I'll decrease the nightly rate and then increase the minimum nightly stay that individual can potentially book that Airbnb for. So say maybe weekends are usually 3-night minimums. I'll decrease the rate and make it 4 or 5-night minimum stay, right? So pretty much we're lowering the rate for people to incentivize them to book longer stays, and then the owner ends up making more money instead of just booking weekends at a lower rate. All right, so that's going to be another thing that you want to do as a co-host. The other thing that you're going to do as a co-host is you're going to build all the listings for your actual owner. So you're going to build it on Airbnb, you're going to build it on Vrbo, which is VRBO, depending on how you pronounce it. You're also going to build it on booking.com. There's numerous different sites, right? The more sites that you're on, the more possibility that you have to get booked, the more eyes that you're able to get in front of, so on and so forth. Me personally, I prefer Airbnb and Vrbo. Some people do booking.com. Some people even have a direct booking website where you can create your own website and have guests book directly with you. That's another option that you can do. But the thing is that although you're building all these different listings, you also want to be able to do listing optimization for that property that you're managing for the owner, right? The better your listing optimization is, the more bookings that potential owner is going to get for their property. So what does that look like? So different listing optimization that you can potentially do are going to be getting proper photography, right? So there's a lot of different photography in real estate. There's photography for long-term rentals, and there's photography for short-term rentals or Airbnbs. You want to make sure you get a photographer that specializes in short-term rentals, vacation rentals, or even lifestyle, because those are going to be the photos that really pop and gather attention. And the more attention you're able to gather, the more eyeballs you're able to get in front of, the more likely you're going to get booked for higher nightly rates and a higher occupancy. All right. So that's going to be your job too, is you're going to want to optimize those listings for your potential clients, right? Or for your potential owners, whatever you want to say. So you can do that by photo arrangements. You can do that by a certain description that you put in place for that actual Airbnb. You can do that by making sure the title highlights the key amenities, the location of that actual Airbnb. What makes that Airbnb special is how you're going to optimize that actual listing itself. All right. So that's one thing that you're going to do. There's numerous different things that you could do as a co-host, but let's just keep it simple for now. And I feel like I just gave you a lock there. So let's continue going down the list. All right. So what is co-hosting? We just touched on that. Let's touch on the benefits of co-hosting, right? So maybe, well, co-hosting is a new term that's just starting to come around. There's not that many people that are talking about it currently. Pretty much what co-hosting, the benefits of co-hosting is the fact with Airbnb arbitrage, you are pretty much literally putting the first payment down to rent, putting the last payment down for rent, you're putting a security deposit down, you're having to furnish that property, buy furniture to put that in there, and then you're also having to do a little upkeep around the house if the house is a little updated, because nobody wants to stay in an Airbnb that looks like it's out of the 70s, right? So there's a lot of money that goes into Airbnb arbitrage. And then the same thing with investing in real estate. Like a lot of people, whenever they're wanting to get an Airbnb, they don't have a lot of money. They have a lot of time, but they don't have money to be able to invest in properties. Usually when you buy an investment property, you put 20% down, you have to furnish it and do all this other stuff, have closing costs. But the benefit of co-hosting is the fact that you don't have to put any money down to manage for somebody else, because you're not buying the property, you're not renting the property. Literally all you're doing is managing it for somebody that doesn't have the time to manage it for themselves, right? So huge benefit, a business that you can start with no cash out of pocket, right? Or very minimum cash out of pocket. And I'll go through those softwares maybe in this video or another video that you would want to use. But in reality, to get started with Airbnb management or co-hosting is maybe $100 or a couple $100 like a month in tech fees. And the rest of that you don't pay, the owner pays, right? To run their Airbnb, and all you're doing is managing it for it. So great advantage. It's a business that you can start, that you can get into with very little or no money down, right? Huge benefit. The other benefit is if you put certain automations in place, like I was talking in the beginning of this video, you literally do not have to spend more than 1 to 2 hours a week managing each property, because you're able to put in certain automations that automatically schedules your cleaner, so you don't have to actually reach out to them. You're also able to put in certain automations with messaging, right? So like certain messages go out when a guest books a reservation. Thank you for booking my reservation. I'll be in touch as your reservation gets closer. 24 hours before a guest checks in, you send another automatic message that just says, hey, welcome. This is the address. This is your check-in instructions. This is your Wi-Fi password. If you have any questions, please reach out to me. And then you even get to send a message like checkout instructions, like a day before they check out. Hey, these are the checkout instructions. Please bring out trash to the curb. Like, please turn the AC up to 79 degrees to help us save on electricity or save on whatever you want to call it, right? So there's huge benefits of co-hosting that are around automations where you don't really have to spend that much time on it, right? Another one I want to talk about is pricing, right? I told you originally, you're going to be in charge of pricing management, right? There's certain softwares that you can do that will automatically adjust your pricing for you, depending on the time of the year, the seasonality, the supply and the demand in the market. So that already is taking up like a lot of the legroom that are your responsibilities as a manager, but you can just integrate this pricing or this software so that you don't have to spend as much time managing the property itself, right? So huge benefits of co-hosting. Just to recap, you can automate the majority of your job, right? So you're only spending 1 to 2 hours a day or 1 to 2 hours a week. You can start the business with very little down, or in the beginning, you don't have to get the softwares or the automations, right? But you're going to be spending more time doing it for yourself. So many benefits. It gives you the experience to understand if you actually like Airbnb or not without investing in a property, without renting a property, and very little risk. I think that's the biggest one. Like, you get to learn if you like doing Airbnbs on somebody else's property, on somebody else's dime. And the fact is that you don't have to put down any of your own money to see if you like Airbnb or not. So those are the biggest benefits that I can mention right now when it comes to co-hosting. All right, so we went through the responsibilities of a co-host already. How do we set up a co-hosting agreement, right? So what I would do for you is there's certain key things that you want to put in your agreement, right? And the biggest thing is you want to make sure that like you're not at risk for anything that happens in that actual property itself. You could literally go on ChatGPT, whatever it's called, and type in, please give me an Airbnb management agreement, and just filter that down, adjust the wording for yourself. But there's a few key things that I would put in there, right? So a lot of people want to lock people into an agreement for like a year long, 2 years long. And that really turns off people whenever you're looking to get new co-hosting clients. So if I was you, what I would do is I would just give them a 60-day out on your side and their side. So like the agreement reads, this agreement is in place for 3 years so that you don't have to send an agreement the following 2 years or 3 years, whatever you want to say, but they have the ability to leave after 60 days. So what that does is it gives them like an aha peace moment that you're not trying to lock them into a contract, because there's so many large property managers that do that and try to lock their clients in for a long time. And that's kind of messed up. But in reality, vacation rental management clients are very sticky. Like once you sign a client, they're most likely a client for you for 3 years. Like they're not going to leave unless you screw up or do something wrong. So if you follow along in this video and other videos, I'm going to show you how not to screw up. But in reality is it's going to get people in the door, right? You're say, hey, look, like we're going to sign this agreement for 3 years, but in reality, the fine print says you're able to leave in 60 days. If you don't like working with me, that's completely fine. If it just doesn't work out, like on either side of ours, like we can just go our separate ways. I'm not going to tie you in for a long time. And just saying that to certain people makes them want to move forward with you, right? Because you don't want to work with anybody that doesn't want to work with yourself at the end of the day. Like it's like kind of having like a girlfriend or a boyfriend and forcing them to stay in a relationship with you. Sometimes things just don't work out, right? So they should have the ability to leave if you're screwing up either way. So put that in the contract. It'll allow them to be more at ease and want to move forward with you as a potential client, right? Okay, so that's the first thing. The next thing is going to be your payouts. Like how are you actually going to be paying these people out? Like what I usually recommend is having them collect all the money, right? So it doesn't touch your bank account so that you're not responsible for their cash. And it just really depends like how big you want to scale this. But like if you're just making this like 10, 15, 20 properties under management, whatever that is, have them collect the money and then you can send like an ACH service agreement, which they'll sign. And pretty much what it just says is like, hey, on the first of the month, I have the ability to charge your account on file for my 20% management fee or whatever your management fee currently is, right? So do that. And then you don't have to touch the money. They collect all the money. You charge them on the first of the month. You get paid out and then you don't have to worry about anything. So I would make sure to have that in the agreement as well. And just most importantly, protect yourself from the liability with the service agreement. So like if you're like a huge liability fan, which you could do, or cautious about liability, you could reach out to an attorney and have them draft it up, probably be a few $100. But whenever you're starting out, like you could literally just go ChatGPT, whatever it's called, like I was saying before, and have them write one up. Right? Or what you could do is you could reach out to a property manager in your market, get a copy of their services agreement or their contract, and literally just copy it and make it your own, right? Multiple different ways to do it. And then obviously if you need one, feel free to reach out to me and I'll send you one as well. You can find me on Instagram, Austin__Palacios. Okay. All right, cool. So setting up co-hosting agreement. Now what I want to do is I want to talk about how you get paid as a co-host. So how you get paid as a co-host. So pretty much what it looks like is, I mentioned it a little bit earlier in this video, but you're paid on percentage of how much that property actually makes. So for example, say a property makes $120,000, right? Which is completely doable down here in South Florida. 4-bedroom pool homes, 10 minutes from the beach, boho coastal themed houses will do $120,000 or more. depending on how nice the design is. So you take a percentage of that. And usually the market standard is 20%. Some people charge less than that. I've seen people charge as low as 10%. I've seen people charge as much as 35%. But across the board, all across the US, I've seen people charge 20%. So you take 20% of $120,000, right? Comes out to $24,000 for the year, or $2,000 per month. And what did I say was one of the biggest benefits of co-hosting? You have very little overhead and very little cost to start this business, maybe a couple $100. So the point that I'm trying to make is if you're making $2,000 a month for 1 to 2 hours a week managing this property with the right automation is in place, you should be netting around $1,800 to $1,900 on that one property, right? And obviously, like as you get more properties, those like margins like potentially get smaller, because like it costs more to have one property than it does to have 3 properties or 5 properties. Because say one of the technologies is $50, and then to add the second property is like $10 and then $15, whatever it looks like. It's like as you get more supply and as you get more properties, your margins get better as well. So like say worst case scenario is $1,800, like you're making a lot of money at the end of the day. Some tips for successful co-hosting. All right, so to be successful in co-hosting, the biggest thing is like the times that your owners are not going to be happy are usually always related to the fact that they're not making money. All right, when people are making money, they're happy. When people aren't making money, they're pretty much furious. They're going to be calling you constantly. So you got to make sure that you're running the property efficiently to make sure they're making money, so you're making money and you don't have any headaches. All right, so let's break that down. And I kind of mentioned it a little bit in the beginning of this video, but I really want to dig deep into this right now. So how do we make sure their property is making the most money as possible? So the first thing that we want to really dig deep into is going to make sure we're only taking on properties or owners that are willing to invest in design and decor for their actual property, or the property's in a good location. All right, so what does that look like? So for example, I gave you a perfect example earlier here in South Florida. Let's look at amenities first. So down here in South Florida, properties that have pools, have hot tubs, have potentially a putting green, are close to the beach, are designed in a coastal boho themed, always perform well. But say for example, you have a property in the ghetto or somewhere not in a great location. They have very terrible sheets, like maybe they're flowers or floral, or they just look super cheap. And then say for example, they hire a long-term rental photographer and the photography looks terrible. That property isn't going to perform well, right? So you want to make sure from the very beginning, the owner is willing to invest in design, have the proper amenities, and really be listening to you on what performs extremely well in this actual market. All right, so that's going to be step 1. The second step that you want to do is hire the photographer. Make sure the photographer is specializing in vacation rentals. The third thing that you want to do is you want to build the listing, and you want to optimize it to the best of your ability, highlighting the key amenities that that property has to offer, such as a swimming pool, such as a hot tub, such as a putting green. If you're in the mountains, a view of the outback so you can see the actual mountains, so they can actually envision themselves staying at the actual property before they actually book that property, right? So building that listing optimization with the photos, the description, the title, highlighting the amenities, highlighting the location. It's the third thing you want to do. The fourth thing that you want to do is you want to make sure your pricing is accurate. You want to set a pricing software in place. I use Price Labs so that the pricing is adjusted to what the market can support and what that property can support, depending on the seasonality, the supply and the demand of the market. And then you want to also add your own pricing strategy in place for the low season, right? So everybody's going to make money in the high season, right? Everybody wants to come to South Florida in the winter time to get away from the snow. Everybody wants to go to the Hamptons in the summertime because it's cool and it's a hot spot. Like when you have a property and it's high season, you're always going to get booked. When you're out of high season is when people aren't going to be making money, right? So that's when you're going to most likely get calls from owners, be like, hey, why am I not making money? What is going on? So on and so forth. So you got to have a pricing strategy in place to prevent that. And make sure you're booking something called orphan days, right? So like say you have a booking that ends on Tuesday and another booking that starts on Thursday. So you have Tuesday and Wednesday open. What's your pricing strategy to like get people to actually book those 2 additional days, right? Because if you do that every single week, say 4 weeks times 2, that's 8 extra days of additional revenue you're able to bring in for your actual owners. So what is your strategy to be able to implement, to be able to increase your occupancy for your actual owners themselves so that they maintain and are happy, right? So that's one thing. Another thing that I would mention is make sure you have a cleaner that specializes in hospitality or Airbnb cleaning turnover, because some owners may have a long-term rental or a long-term cleaner that cleans their actual house that they may want to use. No, do not do that. Tell them no right away, because it's going to affect your reviews for that actual property. And then if you get negative reviews, it's going to bring you down the algorithm. You want to stay above a 4.85 at the minimum, because it'll get you higher, get their listing higher in Airbnb's algorithm, Vrbo's algorithm, Booking.com algorithm, whatever you want to say. Make sure you get a quality cleaner as well. If you get a quality cleaner, what that pretty much will do is maintain your standards for running your business, and make sure you get them on a software that automatically books them in whenever a booking comes in, so that you don't you don't have to individually yourself call them every single time and let them know, hey, look, we just got this booking. I need you to clean on X, Y, and Z's day at this time because they check out here. Just get a software and do that so you can take yourself out of the business. The next thing I want to talk about is common challenges and how to overcome them, right? So some challenges that new co-hosts make in the very beginning, and I kind of mentioned this earlier in this video as well, but some people are trying to be so strict with what they're asking for in the beginning. Like the hardest thing to do is get clients, right? Like all the operations, all the automations, like it'll come to you. And how I built my business is like, how do I increase revenue? How do I get as many clients in the front door? And how you do that is you cause the least amount of friction as possible with your potential prospect. So what does that look like? So say, for example, say you're charging 20%, like I was telling you before, right? And say you have a contract in place for 3 years, right? Or 2 years, 1 year, whatever it is. And you're trying to convince somebody to let you manage their property for them, right? So you're like, hey, look, I need you to sign this agreement for 1 year. You know nothing about me. I'm asking you to trust me. You're gonna sign this agreement and you literally can't leave me for a whole year. That's gonna cause something that we call friction. The other thing is like maybe they're on the fence, right? And they come to you and they say, hey, look, this other property manager came to me and they told me that they would do 10% for like just client communication, not really full service property management. So I think I might go with them. So pretty much you're at 20%, right? So what you want to do is just say, hey, look, John, completely understand. I respect your business. This is what I'm willing to do for you. Obviously, you understand the value. That's why we're talking. I told you 20% because we're full service based on our reviews and the quality experience that we provide for our clients and their guests. I do like you. So what I can do for you is for the first 3 months, I'll drop my rate down to 15% for you. And after those 3 months, if you are happy with the service you're being provided, I would then increase my rate back to the base amount of 20%, right? So it makes them feel like that you're helping them out and bringing your rate down. But instead of you just saying, hey, John, like I'll match the 10%, you're stuck at that 10% for the rest of the year. You're pretty much telling them, hey, look, I'll come down 5% for you. You can test me out for 3 months. And then after those 3 months, you should be doing a good job. And then when you are doing a good job, you can increase your rate back to the 20%. So that way you're not getting stuck at like a lower rate. You're able to like keep increasing your revenue and not having to wait a whole year at 10%, right? And the other thing that's huge is you're providing full service property management. Like say to John, hey, John, like I understand you want to go 10%. Like that's great, man. But how much do you really want to be involved in this like Airbnb management thing? Because like if they're just doing guest communication, I mean, there's 6, 7 different things, 8 different things that I mentioned in this other video that they're not going to be able to do for you, right? So just really ask them, be like, hey, look, do you really want to be involved with this? If not, then I think it might be better if I help you instead of going with the cheaper guy, right? You pay for what you get. You get what you pay for, whatever that saying goes like. So that's a huge thing. Like in the very beginning, you guys, your goal should really just be like, how do I get as many clients as possible through the door that match my brand and that also I can make money for them. And then with me providing value to them, I make money myself, right? So don't be trying to like suffocate people with all these different contracts, this certain rate, be adjustable, be friendly, really listen to like the issues that they're currently facing. That's another thing. Like a lot of people, whenever they're starting a business, they don't really listen to the actual client that's coming to them. They're just so focused on like getting the client so they start making money. But in reality, what you really should be doing is asking questions and asking them. People do not ask enough questions to potential clients that could be, or potential people that could be their client with their management company, right? So What I want you to do is not rush into just throwing the contract at them, telling them all about yourself, telling them why you're the best thing since sliced bread. What I really want you to do that not a lot of people do with starting this co-hosting business is ask them questions. And what type of questions am I referring to? So this is what I'm referring to. What are you looking for? What are you looking for in an Airbnb manager? Like, what issues are you currently facing? What's the most important thing to you that you're looking for? Like, how's your occupancy been? Do you have a certain like threshold that you need to meet for income? Do you know how to like effectively like set up an Airbnb from a design standpoint? Like, do you want to be involved in the Airbnb management whatsoever? Or are you looking for somebody to offer you full service management? Like, really dig into what their pain point is. And instead of just throwing a lot of information at them, instead ask them what is important to them. And then once you have that answer, then you can go back to them and recalibrate your response to what's truly important to that actual prospect. Very important to actually ask questions and understand what they want to know, because if you can do those things, if you can cause the least amount of friction, if you can really understand why that prospect is looking for an Airbnb manager, you are so much more likely to close more clients for your management business as quickly as possible. All right, well, that's pretty much everything that I have for you. If you enjoyed this video, please like, subscribe, comment. You know what everybody says. Either way, if you have any other questions for me, leave me a comment below. I'll get back to you. I'm also on Instagram as well, Austin__Palacios. Send me a message and happy to help in any way I can. Talk to you soon.